Hi, and welcome back to Expat Lens. I hope you're having a good morning, an easy afternoon, or a relaxing evening, wherever you are. I've got a question for you today before we begin. Have you ever been on a road trip with someone and you're driving for hours, but the time just seems to fly by because you're enjoying the conversation so much? Well, on today's episode, I sit down with someone whose conversation I have enjoyed on multiple occasions, including a road trip. My guest today is in fact Japanese, but with a twist. We get into the topics of being multiracial in Japan, and how not only to survive, but thrive when it comes to chasing your dream in a society that is not so open to the idea of standing out. If that interests you, stick around and take a look through the expat lens. Hello and welcome to Expat Lens. Today I have a very special guest and a close personal friend of mine. He goes by a few names: Gushken, Justice. I call him Justice. One of the aforementioned people who walk between two worlds. Justice is not technically an expat, but he is certainly a member of the international community in Tokyo. Japanese American. He's a young man with the soul of an artist. He is a musician, an adventurer, and now also a farmer, I guess, temporarily. I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot to talk about today, so please welcome Justice.
Thank you very much. That's well put. I wouldn't come up with the introduction about me.
How would you introduce yourself,
Yeah,
just out of
well,
curiosity?
that's always been a challenge for me. The way people see me, even if I don't agree with that point of view, it's kind of true, right?
What do you mean? Could you explain that a little bit
So
more?
it's like, let's say people see me as just like muscular man who would like do sport and drink beers and all that stuff. And I don't see myself just like that. But I see sensitive side in me, but many people don't notice. But the way they see is also part of me that I have to agree. And like that's what I discovered these days.
This is an idea that I am also really interested in exploring. When you have an expectation about something that you don't really know about, and then when you actually experience that thing, there's kind of a disconnect, right? The expectation and the reality are almost never the same. And I'm really glad that you said that, because when I was thinking about it before, I was talking about my experience before I came to Japan, what I thought Japan was. And there was a lot of things that were what I thought they were, and then there were many things that were completely different. And I've also experienced being in Japan, people will see you as a foreigner, gaijin, right? And they think that you're this type of person. It's a very small box that they put you into. And then it's kind of, I think it's your responsibility to show them, like, no, I'm a much more complicated human, right? How do you think people see you in
Well,
Japan?
I like how you said it's kind of my responsibility to break down the stereotype. Yeah, so my concern these days, like my wish, is to be able to see myself from third point of view. I started to get interested in me that way. But I think people see me as I still don't know. Maybe, yeah. So I don't know. For you, you could probably tell I got black African American side, and also probably somewhere else. Not many people could tell I got Japanese side gene from my Can you tell?
Well, I know a few
Oh
mixed
yeah,
people
already.
who are also African American and Japanese. And it's kind of hard to say 100%, but I feel like I see
Yeah.
Japanese in you.
So what Japanese people see me, how they see me is not as a Japanese, but either as a foreigner or mix.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Can
think.
you explain,
Yeah.
as a Japanese person and as a mixed person, can you explain what Japanese people think mixed people are like?
Well, I see mixed people as Japanese people who want to be foreigners. So there are many Japanese people who look up to become foreigners or something.
Yeah, it's kind of an attractive
Yeah,
thing,
attractive, yeah.
right?
But mixed people, for me, they are even more attracted by foreigners.
Okay.
They have Japanese soul, but they have like foreigner looks. Basically, they're Japanese who probably can be foreigner. They look up for foreign country even more than normal Japanese people do. That's my like point of view about mixed. Yeah.
How do you feel about that as someone who's mixed?
Mm,
Do you look up to the United States or Canada or any other
I
country?
definitely used to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
But these days it's kind of tiring. So I would rather make a completely new society. I don't want to have Japanese soul and look up for other country. I want to just have hmm it's kind of difficult to explain in English, but simply put, I want a place where just mix will be belonged. You don't have to have two different countries' genes or something. You can just have you and then have unique concept, and maybe no one agrees on that concept,
Mm.
or maybe you are left on the earth with the unique concept. It's only you who believe that, but
Mm.
just being there, people just gonna enjoy listening to your concept.
What you're describing to me sounds like what, at least in my understanding,
Mm,
the perfect image of
mm,
America is supposed to be.
mm,
There's this idea that the United States is supposed to be a melting pot, right?
mm,
Where all countries, all cultures, and all peoples can come and mix.
mm,
Historically, the image of America is a place somewhat like what you described.
mm.
And how many times have you been to the US?
It's including like visiting.
Sure, yeah.
It's probably like only 4 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember you told me that you studied abroad in Canada when you were in
Yeah.
high school,
High
right?
school.
Did you study in the US at some time too?
Yeah, in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did you go?
I was in Orange County.
Okay.
Yeah, so
California.
near Long Beach.
So when you went,
Mm,
being an American but also being Japanese, maybe
mm,
being more Japanese, you were born and raised here, right?
mm,
What did you think of America before you got there and then after you got there? And was it kind of like this place that you're describing
mm.
where you can be mixed, you can be whatever, and it's just about, exploring your own identity?
So 3 things I have. One is when I was like really young, like
Mhm.
probably like kindergarten
Okay.
or elementary school, the image I had about the US is dirty.
Okay.
That's it.
Why?
I don't know, maybe this image just coming from a movie called Home Alone, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
where those uh, you know, bandits, like robbery people,
Mm-hmm.
they hiding in the in a fish market or something. It's
Mm.
just I only had that image, and
Okay.
the city was just dirty.
Yeah, this was like probably New York in
Yes,
the
yes,
late
yes.
80s,
New
early 90s.
York.
The cities were definitely very dirty
Yeah.
back then. So you're not wrong, I suppose.
Well, I guess that was just a part of direction in the movie, right? Supposed to look
Mm.
dirty, and but then my image kind of changed. Uh, so I started. There was time I started to explain Japan and the US. US is a kind of place you can take your dream to, but Japan is kind of place where you kind of have to give up or blended it into reality.
Can you explain those two ideas? So you have a dream in Japan,
Mm,
you need to give it up.
mm,
Why?
mm,
And then also, if you blend it into your reality, what does
mm.
that mean?
So first, it sounded bad. So to give up
Mm-hmm.
your dream and blended it into reality sounded kind of bad, because I value the dream I had in my childhood. But then when it comes to Japan, it's pretty much what they care about isn't really the dream you have, or it's just certain things you're asked to do, and you have to be able to do it in a way they want you to do it.
Mm.
So let's say you come up with better ideas or like solutions, it's kind of hard for them to take it in like immediately. But you kind of have to build it up and become famous and probably introduce that idea. But today, to break your dream is kind of good to me because your dream has to be broken at some point in your life.
Okay, there's
Mm,
a lot of interesting things that you
mm,
just said there. I guess I want to pick up on one of the first things that you
mm,
said, which was you kind of need to follow this set path that's already established in
mm.
Japan. Like there's this really famous phrase in Japanese. What is it? The nail that stands up gets
Uh,
hammered in, something like that, right? I can definitely see that.
mm,
Have you always felt this way? Have you always felt like I want to do things differently? I want to experiment, and then being in Japanese society, you learn that you can't do that, or like you said, you either need to get so famous
mm,
that you change people's minds.
mm,
I'm really curious that you said that because I felt that way too.
mm,
When I look at Japanese artists, like the ones who are so successful, they're all kind of a little bit crazy.
mm,
They're all the ones who decided that they will not follow the rules,
mm,
and they go so far around to the
mm,
other side of not
mm,
following, they come back up,
mm,
and now people respect them.
mm,
But if you are like going on that journey and you're an artist, you're trying to do something new,
mm,
you really have to go out of society for a little
mm.
while. I think some of the people who maybe you have an example of a Japanese artist. The guy that I was thinking of is what's his name? It's like Takahashi or something. He's the one who
Mm,
made the very famous flowers.
mm.
He's a weird guy.
Okay.
Lots of strange sculptures,
He's
very
old.
colorful. Yeah.
Yeah. So since you brought up that question, I think it's good time to just explain how I felt about the world when
Okay.
I was born.
Sure. Yeah, please
So
do.
when I was born, it's kind of embarrassing to say, but I was like, here I am. I got good heart.
Mm,
I got good look,
mm,
and such a person would never been born in millennium century.
mm.
It's like it would be only me. So the world, sorry for kept you waited. Kind of stop. That was my feeling.
Ah.
But then, well, I had to notice that the world is not thinking of me as I do. The world doesn't see me as I do myself. So that's when my dream was kind of blend in to reality. So I didn't have to give up the concept about me, like how I see myself. I still think I'm the best. But now I understand that the world doesn't really have to see me the way I do myself. So that's when I learned that, dream, you're born with a dream, kind of. And I was.
Mm.
And I thought with this dream, I could change the world. But I had to ask two questions. Does the world want the dream? Another one is, well, I forgot. Wait, yeah.
Well, okay, then,
Mm,
and now I have to ask you, of
mm,
course, what was your dream
mm,
and what is your dream? Then how has it changed from
mm,
what it was
mm.
to what it is now?
So, when I was in childhood, like when I was in kindergarten, I had a dream, but I could never explain it with words. I just
Okay.
had the feeling and the
Mm,
sense, and I always knew it was kind of something to do with art.
mm,
So, if I had to say, I would say circus. Being a
mm,
part of circus
mm,
was my dream. But now I know this my dream is about I've been writing this story since junior high school. So almost like 11, 12 years. So
mm,
I've been writing these novels. And then what I want to do is just act the character in this story and make the music
mm,
for that film. For the story and make the film based on the story.
mm, mm.
So basically, big circus, right? based on my script, and I treat my story as almost like my novel or something. Like no, 聖書.
Your Bible.
Yeah, so I treat my story as like my Bible.
So this is your dream is kind of maybe your way of living your life, the way that you want to live your life ideally. Is that correct?
I think so. I think so.
I see.
So that I thought would also influence others, like worldwide. But then I had to realize, like, question myself, would the world also need it? You know?
I really like that you said this because I've had a very similar feeling before, and I'm also kind of trying to change the way that I thought about it. There's this word in Japanese, it's chunibyo, right? Which is, if you translate it into English, it's middle school sickness or something.
Yeah, something.
But like it means, correct me if I'm wrong, it means these types of kids who maybe play too many video games or watch too much anime and they think they're the main character and they're supposed to save the world or whatever. I think that most boys are like this.
Yes.
And like maybe you were like that, maybe I was like that, or we're both still like that.
Yeah.
But the idea being, you want to be a good person, you want to be the hero, you want to save the world. And as I got older and I thought about this more and more, I also thought to myself, well, do I even need to save the world? Does the world need being saved? What does that even mean? It's never such a easy black and white situation where if you just do this, you're going to fix all the problems. It's never like that. And another idea that I've been kind of developing a lot recently is the world is a lot smaller than we think it is. So let me explain. Our world, our personal world, maybe has, I don't know, your family, your close friends, your acquaintances, and everyone out of that sphere, however big it is, maybe 50 people, maybe 100 people, the people outside of that, of course they're in the world, but they're not part of your world. So then I started to think, well, if you still want to be a good person and make a positive change in the world, maybe we should focus on this smaller community and then it will work its way outward. And to tell you the truth, that's also one of the reasons why I really wanted to start doing this project is to connect with the people who are close to me in my life, understand them better, tell their stories, and try to just build up a good, healthy community. So that's sort of how I understood it.
Yeah, so I like what you say, but I think when I put it into my words, it's like the world actually concludes smaller, right?
So you make the world smaller.
It concludes, your life concludes and gives a result in smaller world than you think. So when you say the world, it's much bigger. So like it's like SNS. It's never ending because you keep swiping the world. World gives you everything, and it's never ending. But when you put down your phone and live your life, go ahead and live your life, it actually concludes in a smaller world.
Right.
And
right.
smaller things matter.
I totally agree. Just a little side note, SNS, for anyone who's not familiar, it's social media in English. In Japan, we call it SNS.
Oh, it's a Japanese English?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's technically English, right? Social networking site or something like that. But people, if there's anyone listening who's not familiar with living in Japan, it might be a little confusing.
So that's why when you said, okay, when you are born with a dream and you're so eager to help the world, save the world with your dream, and you get confused. Should I save the world or can you? But so when you brought up Chunibyo, I think yes, you need to save the world, and the world is much smaller. So and that means you are involved and you play the really important part in that world, right? So to do that, you have to be the grandmaster of Chunibyo, basically.
Okay.
So there's a moment people call you Chunibyo, and that's like challenge. Are you gonna give up with your dream? Now you're faced like someone's gonna dip your dream into then gonna throw into your face, right?
That's interesting.
Uh,
I think actually that kind of connects back to this idea that we were talking about earlier, where if you are an artist or you're someone in Japan who has a dream, you really do need to follow that dream so far till to the other side that yeah, you go through everyone saying that you can't do it, this is stupid, just like, do what everyone else does. It's the safe choice, it's the right choice. And then you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, and then suddenly you break through to the other side, and yeah, you're the Chunibyo master, right? You've achieved your dream and you've become the thing that you've always wanted to become. Talking about that, where do you think you are in this journey?
well, I think I've come pretty far. I think so. All those things I've been talking
Mm,
in this podcast, I think I've been through. So there are many times, couple times, that I have um, thrown my dream onto my face.
mm,
But every time I think I need it. So that's why Japan is a kind of place where your dream is broken, but you learn to blend it into reality. Is because if everyone is going to leave you with your dream, I think you just get lost. It's so free. But in order to, yes, in order to keep up with your dream and make it come true, you need freedom, right? Freedom doesn't really come where you are free. I think freedom comes when you're kind of restricted.
I totally agree.
Mm,
When you have a limit or
mm,
restrictions to yourself when you're creative, that is actually so important,
mm,
because it's just as you said, if you're free to do whatever you want, you have no direction
mm,
and you can't put your energy and focus.
mm,
But if you say, for example, because I write, you write as well, I know I have an idea, but I have to write it within 1,500
mm,
words. If not, it's going to lose its direction. It's going to become very unclear. So just within 1,500 words, get the idea out there: introduction, core idea one, core
mm,
idea two, conclusion, and tie everything together. And maybe it's not perfect, but maybe it's 80% of the thing that you wanted to do.
right.
And then you keep working on it again and again and again. And it's kind of like when you polish a stone or something,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, that's actually the example I was gonna bring. Polishing stone is a job. People carve stone and make a statue or something, right?
Mm,
So I think about dream that you bring into your life or you're born with as a stone.
mm,
It's like pure stone and it's flawless. It's not damaged, but it looks just like stone and just circle. So no one understands your dream
mm,
because it's circle. So what you need to do is, in order to explain your dream and blend it into reality, you have to carve it, you have to polish it, and you have to, yes, give up some pieces. So that's when it's kind of really scary to tell others what you think because your thought is flawless, circle, pure stone, but you have to, when you tell this to others, you have to use words. And language is another restriction. When you learn that language, how language restricts you, in a way, it gives you kind of freedom in this reality. So being a grandmaster of Chunibyo is like, okay, yes, I know I'm stuck in fantasy, but I can be the bridge to fantasy and reality.
interesting.
And many people seek throughout their lives, they seek happiness, right? But I believe that comes when you 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 become the bridge, connecting the reality and your fantasy. So you kind of have to give up. I don't want to use the word give up, but like you have to polish it.
Yeah, I think the way you described it earlier was really, really clear
Mm,
and was a great picture where you have this perfectly round stone and you need to carve it and get rid of some of it,
mm,
right? So when you say give up, you don't mean give it up entirely.
no.
Just take some pieces away and then becomes something. It takes a shape that other people can understand. I think that you explained it very, very clearly like that. And I completely agree with you. To kind of go back a little bit, I'm really enjoying what you
Yeah,
said.
let's
right?
go back.
To go back a little bit, can you talk about what it was like for you growing up in Japan as someone who has a mixed identity?
So, with that being said, I was definitely different from Japanese people, like pure Japanese people, in terms of look or how I think. But I also find myself different from mixed people too.
Okay.
Yeah, because to me, mixed people, they look like Japanese, but they are not accepted as Japanese.
When you say look, do you mean like the way that they act or the
Oh
way
yeah,
that,
acting,
okay,
not feature or looks,
yeah.
but pretty much acting and also things they do. So I can tell that they're Japanese, and I couldn't see the difference between mixed people and Japanese people. And it took a lot of time for me to notice that oh yes, I am mixed. But for that, other people had to just keep telling me that I mix and mix and mix and mix. That's not something I force myself to understand, but like I got it. I got the idea from others.
I'm just kind of
No, no,
digesting what
no.
you said a little bit.
But so let's talk about elementary school. So elementary school, why elementary school? Because kindergarten they didn't really care how I looked. Interesting, huh? But elementary school and people started to act differently, right? First thing they talk about is the color of my skin. Like it's all the same everywhere. So I had no problem. I actually, I was wondering why my skin is darker than others. Yes, but people just had to bring that up, like in the class, right? And everyone's discussing whether you call it black or brown.
Ah.
Okay, but I didn't know why they talk about it. And elementary, that was like grade 6, 7, right?
So
8.
you were about 11 or 12 years
Yeah,
old?
probably younger actually.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, younger. Then what happened is that when I was 12 or 13, then there was this guy. I was friend with him, but suddenly he just had to outcast me from the group. He was kind of like leader of the group,
Okay.
and he was like ruling the whole grade. What?
The boss monkey.
Yeah, boss monkey. And then, so yes, that was the moment when I feel like they're throwing it on my face, right?
I see.
But actually, what they did is only help me understand something. Is that I kind of, I'm gonna use this word again, but gave up to struggle. So I kind of noticed that this conflict I'm having doesn't have to be mine. It looked like I used to think that I was struggling to be part of them, but it's actually them who's struggling to understand that I am part of them. So
Very
it's their
interesting.
conflicts. So that kind of was relief. So relief came that moment. And what they did was probably they tried to outcast me, but what they did is just I grew up.
Wow.
I hope it just had a new point of view.
That's I think that's a very challenging thing for anyone to go through, but also being a young person in a society where being part of the group is kind of the default in Japan, right? And your way of getting through that is really impressive, I have to say. To make that decision and make that realization as a young person, I think is pretty rare. And whether or not you're mixed, a lot of people have trouble struggling with their identity when they're, early teens or something, and even when you get older, right? How did you continue to develop this what can I say here? Your personal view on life, the one that you just described. I'm not struggling to be part of them. They're struggling to understand that I am part of them. Has this manifested in some other way as you've gotten older in high school, university, and so on?
Whoa, so that just got me leave alone for a while.
Uh,
So for like entire junior high school, my junior high school time, mostly I spent my time alone.
mm,
So I have to talk about my parents also.
okay.
So they were divorced, and I don't know when. So like
Mm,
when I, 真心 when I was
I
aware,
okay.
when I was aware, my father wasn't there.
Mm,
So it
mm,
was kind of natural thing for me to not have a father.
mm, mm,
And it's actually natural for, sorry, this is stereotype, but it's actually natural for many mixed people
mm,
not have either parent or just
mm,
one parent. So my mother had to. She's a boss of her company, so she had to be away for pretty much every day
mm,
and every time. And then I remember when I was in elementary school, I was crying.
mm, mm.
But when I grew up in junior high school, I don't like my parents. How do you call that period?
Your rebellious phase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Then, so she not being there was not problem. Actually, it was like a pleasure,
Mm, okay.
just like other children. But then, I just had to spend my most of the time in my house. I liked playing games a lot.
Mm.
I didn't play any sport. Well, I liked it, but I
That's
didn't.
really
Yeah.
surprising because you're so sporty now.
Uh, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I kind of I don't hate, but I want to argue with the people who think I'm kind of like only sporty. But I have a geek side.
Hmm.
I'm built up. My foundation is geek side. But yeah, so being alone, what came to me was such a gift when I was in junior high school. So I started to not write but create a story. So I always liked how it started was like I always liked reading or knowing about mythology. But I always didn't like to read it as it is and understanding it as it is.
Mm.
So I always try to make a backstory of it, like hidden story of it. But then all of it kind of started to make sense in a way,
Mm.
and just one piece, starting to make a story, one story. It was all fragments. That was good because all the things I value now about me was built up in the junior high school when I was alone, spending myself thinking about or imagining, like, just having fantasy. I was making myself a part of the hero, main characters. There are
Mm.
four main characters, and I was like part of it, right? With my name. But then all those imagination and fantasy was just for me. And by the time all the racism or being a mix didn't really care, like didn't really matter.
How do you feel like now that you have this mentality, you don't care about being mixed, it's not me, it's them. Have you noticed that Japanese people treat you differently now? And now that you're a
Um,
young man, I mean, you're an adult.
well, mm, I thought they were treating me differently
Mm.
now that I am adult, but that's because I just changed my mind.
Ah,
Right?
yeah,
The world
yeah.
doesn't really change, but it's just
Mm.
I changed how it reflects me, or like I just changed my perspective.
Perspective.
Yeah,
Hmm.
perspective. That's why the world reflects differently. But when I start to care just a
Mm.
little bit more about world, which I learned I should, the world is kind of similar, but something. was happening since 3 years ago or 4 years ago.
Okay.
But that's just not about me.
Mm.
And that's just about the world.
Mm.
As if the generation or era has been changing or something. And some people say that the era now is like wind generation kind of stuff.
The wind, what does that mean?
Everything goes by wind. So like if you so before was more like fundamental, like foundation. You have to be part of the society. You have to belong to company. You have to have like salary. But now, just like you're doing, Jack, radio, you can create your radio station,
Mm.
podcast. You, you can make a script. You're doing script writing, and my friends are doing it. Like a lot of my friends are doing not radio, but other stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
creative stuff, and being their own boss. So to me, I started to notice the change 4 years ago or 3 years ago.
Interesting.
So, yeah, and some people call it is like a wind generation
Is that
stuff.
how it's said in Japanese?
Japanese は風の時代 and
Okay.
before was either tsuchi like mud or
Mhm.
water. I don't know, but it's just about foundation. I think it's mud.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So now every like common concept is gonna break down, and it has fallen down
Mm.
since COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But now, yeah, people do whatever they want.
Kind of moving towards the future and with that idea, what do you think Japanese society is going to look like in maybe 5 years, 10 years? I know this is a really hard question, but anyone who knows about Japan, it's like Japan was in the golden era during the 80s. It had this amazing economic growth and they enjoyed so much wealth up until around 1992. The economic bubble burst, and then Japan has been stagnating for about 30 years now. Saying that it's stagnating, it's still very, very nice to live here. The quality of life is great, but people talk about how like Japan is over, Japan is sinking. So how do you feel? And it can be just your opinion. I know it's a hard thing to project, but like where do you see Japan going in this new wind generation?
Well, I think Japan is gonna be unlike Japan. So if you see, you just go simply walking Shibuya, Harajuku, you see many foreigners.
Mm.
And now, Japan, food-wise, they're depending on foreign country, like pretty much like 80%. I don't know,
Mm.
but yes, and also economic, foreign countries like helping Japan a lot,
Mm.
and population, I think half of the population, Japanese population, soon will be foreigners.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, that's something maybe that
Mm.
is a welcoming change for people who are interested in coming to Japan or interested
Yes.
in living in Japan. Personally, myself being a quote unquote foreigner, right? That sounds like a pretty fun idea to me. There's so many other things that we could talk about. Do you have any other thoughts for today? Maybe some final thoughts?
So, well, okay, let me continue talking about how Japan will be like.
Please.
Well, it will simply be diverse city, like diverse world. Especially, I think about Japan and Tokyo differently. But let's talk about Tokyo,
Okay.
right? Tokyo. I remember when you said how the U.S. is supposed to look like, and it has to be diverse, right? It's United States, right? And it should, well, welcome, many genes or like races. But studying about mythology and Japanese mythology especially, Japan started like that. So I recently starting agriculture, so
Mhm.
like doing farming for rice and stuff. And there's this master, right? And what he told me, it was actually interesting. The fate the U.S. has and Japan has, it's actually same.
Mm.
So Japan has this image of like the place where only Japanese will belong, but the starting when you look at history, like real history, it started with diverse races. So it was the US first.
Yeah.
Now the US has responsibility that Japan was supposed to have. I think US will have a big trouble soon, very soon.
It kind of feels like
Yeah.
it's heading in that direction. When you say, just to explore that idea a little bit more, because I think it might be somewhat confusing to
Mm,
people who are not familiar with
mm,
Japanese history. When you say that Japan used to be like the US in terms of diversity,
mm,
I'm guessing that you mean like, okay, they're in the north, there are the Ainu people,
mm,
and then there, the main island in Honshu, there's
mm,
maybe a couple of different quote unquote races, like the Yamato, but then
mm,
there was also an older Japanese people who moved up to Aomori, and
mm,
then like there was a lot of connection with Korea at the
mm.
time, and then also a lot of connection with Okinawa.
Mm.
Am I getting this right? Am I missing some points here too?
You are getting it right,
Mm.
but the impression people will get from your explanation will be like, well, everyone would look like Japanese anyway. But I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say this or not. I'm just gonna say it just a little bit.
Go ahead.
What if, if I say Japan did have black people, European people,
Mm.
so all those people, and there's this tiny little research. If you research the DNA of old Japanese, let's say indigenous
Hmm.
people, and you take the gene out of Native American, Native Canadian, there's a 90% they match. So
Wow. Okay, so that means something,
yeah, that
right?
means something. So I don't want to talk about this too deep, way too deep, but what I believe is that Japan used to be diverse, and now it's going to be diverse. History repeats, but in a way it rhymes. History doesn't really repeat the same way. It goes spirally goes up, right?
Okay,
It
I see.
just keeps.
So similar patterns, but each revolution, shall we say,
Yes,
is a little
exactly,
bit different.
exactly.
I like that.
So right now, Japan is a point where the history repeats, rhymes,
Mm.
and the diversity will come back. But when the US is going to have problem, Japan must help them.
When you say help, what do you imagine that would be like?
Mm, like dollar problem.
Ah, so like an economic thing. Okay, I can't make any
Yeah.
comments on that, but
Yeah.
perhaps we'll see. Although I do like your vision of the future,
Mm,
the way that you think Japan is going to look in the next few
mm,
generations, and I hope that it comes true.
mm,
Again, we could talk a lot about this, and I would like
mm.
to continue this conversation again for another
Uh,
day. But let's put a pin in it for
mm,
now,
mm.
and I'll ask you one more time. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to put out there?
Well, just one. Well, about the Japan again.
Sure.
Sorry, just emotion I
Yeah,
have is
please.
like so. As Japan or Tokyo becomes more diverse, I'm happy, but at the same time, it's kind of sad because no one would understand Japan as I do. It's like no one would understand myself, like me, as I would. So I kind of want to share how I understand Japan, but it's kind of really difficult if you, even if you're Japanese, even if you speak Japanese, even
Mm,
if you have Japanese background, it's really difficult.
mm.
So,
Well, maybe that's your responsibility as an
mm,
artist,
I
right?
think so.
To
So that's what I'm gonna be doing in the future.
Great.
Yeah, throughout stories. Yeah.
Well, I mentioned to you before we started the podcast that I like to always kind of frame things as past, present, and future, and I Also, moving forward, want to invite guests on again, however long it takes, a few
Mm.
months, a year, whatever. And I want to see where that vision that you have now goes and what you create. And you, again, you described this idea of having a perfectly round stone that is your dream, and you chisel away at it, and you have to take parts from it, but it brings shape to that dream. I'm really looking forward to see how you carve that dream, and I'd love to have you back on and talk about it again in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Justice. Thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. I think the big takeaway from today was it's okay to have outlandish dreams, just as long as you put in the work and try to achieve them. It might sound overly sentimental, but the other thing that Justice said that struck me was, don't be afraid to let the goodness in your heart stand out. It could be a gift to society, and it might just help make the world a better place. By the way, are you enjoying the music you're listening to right now? Justice composed it. As he mentioned, he's also in the process of writing a book, the first chapter of which is out now, Elemental Magic. It's only available in print form and Japanese for the time being, but hopefully we'll see an English translation one of these days. Please check out his work and support him over on SoundCloud. As always, details are in the description box. Let's wrap things up here for today. Thanks again for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Expat Lens.